Welcome to our continuing series, Questions and Answers for a World in Crisis. Mistakes, Part 2, from the Mother. That is good, my child. I trust you, and I know that you will never deliberately do anything I do not like. So you must not be sad, nor dwell on the past, but think only of the joy of not making any more mistakes on this point in the future. And you may be sure that my affection will always be with you to help you to do the right thing. 18 January 1933. You must not regret. It is always better to be frank and open. That is the best way to correct one's mistakes. 24 January 1933. I give it to you constantly, but you must not always lose it by continually repeating the same mistakes. 30 August 1934. Disciple. The same mistakes are always drawing me away from you, and I have to take refuge in solitude. Mother, you must know whether you can do it without falling into a depression, which would be even worse than gossiping. 18 June 1935. Disciple, I don't feel you in my heart, but I see you above me. If my feeling is not mistaken, will you tell me the difference? Mother, no, it is not mistaken. In the heart, it is a psychic contact. Above the head, it is a mental contact. Yes, this is good. If you do not obey, it is you who become responsible for the slightest mistake. If, on the other hand, you scrupulously obey, the whole responsibility rests with the person who has given the orders. 10 May 1938. Disciple, sweet mother, please tell me why this room at Golconda, which is to be concreted on Tuesday, has taken so long to get ready. I must know my mistakes. Mother, the work is not going well, because at Golconda there is an atmosphere of discord and disagreement, which prevents the force from working effectively. If each one made an effort to overcome his preferences and dislikes, the work would go much better. 22nd January 1939. From Sri Aurobindo. That is a great error of the human vital, to want compliments for their own sake, and to be depressed by their absence, and imagine that it means there is no capacity. In this world, one starts with ignorance and imperfection in whatever one does. One has to find out one's mistakes and to learn. One has to commit errors and find out, by correcting them, the right way to do things. Nobody in the world has ever escaped from this law. So what one has to expect from others is not compliments all the time, but praise of what is right or well done, and criticism of errors and mistakes. The more one can bear criticism and see one's mistakes, the more likely one is to arrive at the fullness of one's capacity. Someone who is learning to paint, or play music, or write, and does not like to have his mistakes pointed out by those who already know, how is he to learn at all, or reach any perfection of technique? To take advantage of what is good in others, keeping one's eye always on that, and to deal tactfully with their mistakes, faults, and defects is the best way. It does not exclude firmness and maintenance of discipline, even severity when severity is due, but the latter should be rare, and the others should not feel it as if it were a permanent attitude. The difficulty you find results very much from your always worrying with your mind about things, thinking, this is wrong, that is wrong in me or my work, and as a result, I am incompetent, I am bad, nothing can be done with me. Your embroidery work, your lampshades, etc., have always been very good. And yet, you are always thinking, this is bad work, that is wrong. And by doing so, confuse yourself and get into a muddle. Naturally, you make a mistake now and then. But more when you worry like that than when you do things simply and confidently. Do not worry about mistakes in work. Often you imagine things are badly done by you, when really you have done them very well. But even if there are mistakes, it is nothing to be sad about. Let the consciousness grow. Only in the divine consciousness is there an entire perfection. The more you surrender to the divine, the more will there be the possibility of perfection in you. Do not attach too much importance to such mistakes, or get upset about them. It is the nature of the mind to make such mistakes. It is only a higher consciousness that can set them right. The mind can be sure only after a very long training in each particular action. And even then, It has only to be off guard for something untoward to occur. Do as well as you can. For the rest, let the higher consciousness grow till it can enlighten all the movements of the physical mind. Remorse, repentance, is the natural movement of the vital mind when it sees it has done a mistake. It is certainly better than indifference. Its disadvantage is that it disturbs the vital stuff and sometimes leads to depression or discouragement. For that reason, what is usually recommended to the sadhak is a quiet recognition of the mistake, with a sincere aspiration and will that it should not be repeated, or at least that the habit of making such mistakes should soon be eliminated. At a higher stage of development, when the inner calm is established, one simply observes the defects of the nature as defects of a machinery that one has to put right, and calls down the light and force for its rectification. In the beginning, however, the movement of repentance even helps, provided it does not bring discouragement or depression. Who does not feel the confusion or ignorance somewhere in himself, so long as the full light and the true force have not come? Your mistake is to be always thinking about the confusion and struggling with it, dwelling on it, magnifying it by thinking about it, treating it as if it were the only thing real and true. When you feel the force, turn to the force and let it act. It is that force, and not you or your brooding and struggles, that can get rid of the confusion and darkness. What is the use of examining whether your faith and confidence are of the true kind or not? To feel the force, be quiet, let it act, is all that is needed. Impersonality in itself is not the divine. All these mistakes can be and are made by many who claim to be in an impersonalized consciousness. A force may be universal, but may be also a wrong force. Many think they are impersonal and free from ego because they are obeying a force or something bigger than their own personality. But that force or that something may be quite other than the divine, and it may hold them by something in their personality and ego. But man has also a mind, and as he develops, he learns to control his vital and physical nature by his reason and by his will. This control is very partial, for the reason is often deluded by vital desires and the ignorance of the physical, And it puts itself on their side and tries to justify by its ideas, reasonings, or arguments their mistakes and wrong movements. Even if the reason keeps free and tells the vital or the body, do not do this, yet the vital and the body often follow their own movement in spite of the prohibition. Man's mental will is not strong enough to compel them. When people do sadhana, there is a higher nature that works within, the psychic and the spiritual. And they have to put their nature under the influence of the psychic being and the higher spiritual self, or of the divine. Not only the vital and the body, but the mind also has to learn the divine truth and obey the divine rule. But because of the lower nature and its continued hold on them, they are unable at first and for a long time to prevent their nature from following the old ways. Even when they know or are told from within what to do or what not to do, it is only by persistent sadhana, by getting into the higher spiritual consciousness and spiritual nature, that this difficulty can be overcome. But even for the strongest and best sadhaks, it takes a long time.